Ghana marks 54th African Union Day.
Investors invited to help revamp defunct factories within Savannah Ecological. Good evening, it's African Union Day. Welcome to GBC24 and GTV. This is News Hour. I'm Thelma Taki.
And my name is Emmanuel Amagashi. And to our first story. Ghana has marked the 54th African Union Day with a flag-raising ceremony at the forecourt of the State House.
The clarion call was for Africans to unite to build a continent founded on the rule of law and good governance. On the 25th of May 1963, African leaders for the first time with one accord committed to pull resources together to lift the continent from its struggles. This vision of the founding fathers gave birth to the Organization of African Unity, OAU, now African Union. 54 years down the lane, this vision is yet to be fully realized. Poverty, dictatorship, conflicts, trade barriers, human rights abuses, epidemics, and drought are challenges that have prevented the continent from achieving its goals. Fighting hard to overcome these challenges, Africa is now bedeviled with terrorism and extremism. The 54th anniversary message is for all Africans to repair the injustices, build their own institutions, and win themselves of donor support.
In the management of the humanitarian crisis caused by armed conflict and drought, Africa needs to show unity and solidarity with the countries affected by these scourges and work to minimize their harmful effects and stimulate growth. To stimulate economic growth and take full advantage of science and technology, the only valid alternative and viable for our continent is electrification, which must be a priority.
In 2013, the AU adopted a solemn declaration rooted in Pan-Africanism as the benchmark for transforming the continent to its desired state. The Agenda 2063 includes a 10-year short-term plan aimed at achieving peace and security.
We fully subscribe to the ongoing institutional reform of the African Union under the able leadership of President Paul Kagame. This is important in order to make the organization more effective and efficient, truly representative of our collective aspirations, and a true union of the African peoples. Equally deserving of our full support are the new mechanisms that are being put in place by African leaders to ensure that the African Union becomes well-resourced and less dependent on external funding, especially for its most strategic programs and projects as aligned above.
This year's celebrations was on the theme, harnessing the demographic dividend through investment in the youth. International relations expert Dr. Vladimir Intridanso has called for significant reforms in the institutional structures of the AU, especially in the area of security, while recognizing the significant progress made by the regional body in health and education. He said terrorism is a major setback to the fortunes gathered over the years.
Advent of the African Union, which started as the Organization of African Unity, aimed to ensure regional integration to promote economic and social welfare of member states. It has a membership of 55 countries. One of the challenges of the AU is differences in ideology. The regional body can boast of some impressive developments on the continent. An international relations expert, Dr. Vladimir Intridanso, cited multiple membership within the AU as a drawback to the rapid revolution of integration.
We said by 2025 Africa should be, and I think we still have time. The Abuja project had been truncated in various forms, but if we go back to it, build ECOWAS like one country, like EU. So ECOWAS, EU type ECOWAS, EU type ECAS, EU type. When you build these 5 pillars, this foundation, you get AU in no time.
In trade relations, he said, opening up the borders of member states is not enough for trade liberalization.
Africa trades amongst itself only 14%. And we trade vertically with the North 86%. When you have such a situation, integration is difficult. And this is worsened by pockets of instability that we are all envisaging in Africa. The worst situation now is the rise of what I call terrorist tendencies. So these things don't make our unity gel very well.
On democracy and elections, Dr. Inkudanso disagrees with the assertion that long-serving African leaders are an affront to democracy.
Is it the length of period that is more important in governance, or how we govern, which is more important? I believe how we govern is more important. So that the person's tenure of office, whether enshrined in the Constitution or not, will make him stay or not stay. But of course, people misuse the opportunity. So for me, can Africa think about what kind of governance we want, which creates the condition for constitutionalism?
On governance, Dr. Inkudanso said the winner-takes-all syndrome is one reason why many African leaders would not relinquish power in the face of defeat in elections. He said institutions of state must be allowed to work free of political interference.
Majority carries the vote, 1. 2, winner takes all, and we don't even understand the winner takes all. It's as soon as my party called KKK will take over, then the whole of the country must be KKK, or else I rule over KKK and forget about the rest.
As part of activities to mark African Union Day, the National Youth Authority, under the auspices of the Ministry of Youth and Sports, in collaboration with the Federation of Professional Trade Association of Ghana, has opened a livelihood skills and business fair in Kumasi.
The fair brought together artisans including bead makers, hairdressers and fashion designers from across the country. It is under the theme towards AU Agenda 2063, harnessing the demographic dividend through investment in the youth. The Minister for Youth and Sports, Mr. Isaac Isiama, said the fair is an opportunity to harness Africa's social and economic capital by training the youth in entrepreneurial skills.
The youth constitute our major source of human capital for the transformational agenda of this country. They are the most economically active part of the population. Very strong, very able, and I'm happy to see a clear demonstration of skills, talents that are here from all the regions of this country.
The Chief Executive of the National Youth Authority, Mr. Emmanuel Asigri, indicated that the spate of youth unemployment has necessitated the provision of avenues for young people to engage in livelihood activities to earn a living. To this end, government has established a youth enterprise fund to provide the youth with startup capital for their businesses. He said the NYA and FEDSTAG will embark on a nationwide crusade to train 50,000 youth on artisanal, vocational and apprenticeship programs by the close of 2018.
A section of Ghanaians gathered at the foyer of Parliament to pray for Ghana and the African continent as a whole. It was in memory of pioneer African leaders and to get further push for a united continent. The event was under the theme, Let's Make Africa Great Again.
Mission Africa Incorporated, in collaboration with the Parliament of Ghana and the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, has held this year's African Union Prayer Day. It is the 14th in the series and falls on every 25th May, which happens to be AU Day. The day was set aside to pray, to strengthen the political will of African leaders, to walk the dream of Ghana's founder, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, of forming a common African country. Throwing more light on the event, the president of Mission Africa Incorporated, Dr. Kojo Sumni, said, the time has come for all Africans to contribute their quota to make Africa great again.
African young men and women will complete objectives. As one to start, one to finish. This is the finishing generation. By the grace of God, through the Holy Spirit, I believe strong, without no doubt, that we shall live to see the United States of Africa in our time.
The congregation offered intercessory prayers for managers of Africa's resources. Present at the prayer grounds were various denominational heads, both local and international.
The Parliamentary Christian Fellowship PCF, in collaboration with International Gospel Outreach, has organized a dinner meeting with the theme Thanksgiving to God for a Peaceful Election. The event was held at the banquet hall in Accra.
As Parliament prepares to resume sitting, the Parliamentary Christian Fellowship gathered to thank God for a peaceful election. The group was also full of appreciation of God's grace and guidance throughout the year. The event attracted several dignitaries. The MP for Karachi West, Madam Helena Juantoso, said mastering the scriptures and regular church attendance are just badges of Christianity. She said the step further will be the ability to reach out to others by evangelizing or doing charity work. Ultimately, she said, the spirit of a Christian must reflect in one's life.
As Christians, we've got to always stand in unity. We've got to stand by each other, no matter the circumstances, no matter the situations. A time is coming when we're going to have independent candidates for Christ. Hallelujah. And when that time comes, we'll forget about what MPP is, we'll forget about what NDC is, we'll stand for Christ in Parliament.
The President of International Gospel Outreach, UK, Reverend Kingsley Armstrong, said when God's favor locates a person, no impediment can block it.
You have many people in Ghana who are marginalized and they live on the edge of society, and a lot of things can make you marginalized. Rahab was marginalized and she lived on the outside of the wall, but she had one thing that nobody else had. When other people looked out through the window, they would have seen the enemy coming, but when she looked out through the window, because she was looking through hope, what seemed to be an enemy was going to work for her.
Former MP for Nkwanta North, Mr. Geshon Bediame, and the former Ashanti Regional Minister and the founder of Parliamentary Christian Fellowship, PCF, Reverend S.K. Boafu, were honored by the International Gospel Outreach.
I feel highly pleased because, you see, if you do something and you think that nobody is watching, but people have watched and they have appreciated it. You know, when you are appreciated for what you do, it gives you encouragement to do more than what you have done.
It's not easy at all. People will give all sorts of names, but if you know what you are about and the hope that you have, then nothing will disturb you from your vision. And at the end of the day, you have succeeded in the sense that for the past 10 years, the ministry or the fellowship has been going on. Remember, you are greater whilst you are young, in the youth. And then you say, when you grow up, everything that you grow, you bear fruit.
The Parliamentary Christian Fellowship was formed to bring Christians in Parliament together to serve God.
STL News Hour live on GBC24 and Ghana Television. The bill for the establishment of the Office of the Special Prosecutor will be laid before Parliament when the House resumes sitting. This will pave way for the establishment of the Office of a Special Prosecutor by July this year to prosecute public officials involved in corruption. The Director of Communication at the Presidency, Mr. Eugene Ahin, announced this when he briefed the media on the President's one-day visit to Sierra Leone.
President Akufo-Addo's one-day visit to Sierra Leone starts the third phase of his tour of West African countries. He will also visit Liberia and Mali. On his arrival back home from Sierra Leone, the president was met by his vice, Dr. Mahmoud Baumia, and some dignitaries. The Director of Communications at the Office of the President, Mr. Eugene Ahin, threw more light on the president's tour of Sierra Leone.
Whilst in Sierra Leone, basically, the president recounted the kind of support Ghana gave to Sierra Leone during the era of the conflict. I mean, he stressed how Ghana put the full force of her diplomacy as well as her arms in conjunction with ECOWAS to ensure that peace and stability was brought to Sierra Leone. He also commended his Sierra Leonean counterpart, President Bai Koroma, for fostering a sense of unity as well as fostering a sense of reconciliation amongst the peoples as a result of the number of years of war that country had experienced. In recounting the history of the relations between Ghana and Sierra Leone, he indicated that despite all these years of good relations and good bilateral ties that exist between our two countries, there is no formal agreement between Ghana and Sierra Leone that bind us in terms of our trade and investment concerns. One such agreement was signed on the 19th of December 2013, but till date, that agreement has not been ratified by our respective parliaments. So President Akufo-Addo on his part told his Sierra Leonean counterpart that upon his return to Accra, he would make sure that this agreement is put before Parliament so that it is ratified, so that it would help in the establishment of the Permanent Joint Commission for Cooperation, which will provide the legal framework for addressing the trade and investment concerns of the two countries.
Mr. Ahi said the establishment of the Office of the Special Prosecutor is one of the major campaign promises made by the President during the 2012 elections. The move is intended to separate politics from criminal investigations. Mr. Ahin said the Office of the Special Prosecutor will put to rest allegations of witch hunting usually associated with the prosecution of government officials.
Sure, once the legislation is put before Parliament, at least the processes leading up to the selection of whoever becomes a special prosecutor will be laid before. But definitely the idea is to ensure that the person who is eventually appointed enjoys the consensus of both sides of Parliament. And God willing, from the second part of this year, i.e. from July 2017, the Office of the Special Prosecutor would start working, and all cases with regards to acts of corruption or acts of malfeasance on the part of any public office holder will be put before the person who will be selected to be the special prosecutor.
The President will leave Accra tomorrow, the 26th of May, to Liberia and Mali. He is expected back home on Sunday, the 28th of May.
The Minister for Special Development Initiatives, Madam Mavis Kumsin, is inviting investors to revamp defunct factories within the Savannah ecological zones. Key among the factories are the Polugu tomato and the Volta Star corned beef factories. Madam Kumsin was on a tour to assess the extent of repair works needed to get the state-owned factories running again.
The Savannah Ecological Zone makes about 54.4% of Ghana. It covers over 8 million hectares of arable lands, 95 medium and 23 larger dam sites, and over 400 billion cubic meters of runoff water annually. These best position the area for commercial and irrigation agriculture, with an energetic, resilient and hardworking people more than ready to work to ascertain the challenges, assets and liabilities associated with her ministry. The Minister for Special Development Initiatives, Madam Mavis Kumsin, embarked on a tour to some defunct factories and institutions in the Upper East region. Her first port of call was the Ghana Water Company, which takes its source from the Vie Gori Irrigation Dam in the Bongo district. She was taken through the source, pumping, purification and distribution process of potable water.
So when you add the alum, the settled water becomes lower in pH than the raw water. So it falls into the acid region, and we need to add this one to appreciate it to the basic region, so that it fall within the acceptable range that the pH was given it. So that is the function of this one, just to make the water soft.
Her next stop was the defunct Volta Star corned beef factory. Although it was established in 1961 during General Achampon's era, it wasn't until 1965 when it began to operate. Those days, about 100 cows were slaughtered a day, 50 was processed, and the other 50 sold in meat cottages as beef across the region. The facility had no cold store then, until 1993, when a cold store was attached but was running separately off the factory. The equipment are now in a sorry state, most of which cannot be salvaged. The factory is now defunct and on the divestiture list. However, the Minister for Special Development Initiatives, Madam Mavis Howard-Kumson, hopes to revamp the factory in addition to others within the zone.
I will seize this opportunity through your media to invite investors to come and invest. Very soon we'll be changing the name of SADA to Northern Development Authority, and we'll be creating 2 more other development authorities in addition to SADA, which will drive development in the areas so that we can bridge the gap.
Government's One District, One Factory policy is soon to be rolled out, and the minister hopes to enlist these defunct factories and others to be identified onto the program. Cyril Fori reporting for GBC24.
Management of the cocoa processing company have presented assorted cocoa products to the National Chief Imam, Sheikh Nuhu Shaributu. The gesture is to support the Chief Imam and Muslim faithful as they prepare to mark this year's Ramadan, which starts from Friday 26th of May to 24th of June.
Led by the Managing Director, Mr. Frank Asante, presented assorted cocoa products to the National Chief Imam, Sheikh Nuhu Shaributu, at his residence in Accra. The items included chocolate bars, all-time and royal drinking powder, and tiger nut spread. The Managing Director of the Cocoa Processing Company, Mr. Frank Asante, said the gesture is to support the Chief Imam and the Muslim Council as they prepare towards Ramadan.
Management and staff of Cocoa Processing Company have decided to come and support our Muslim brothers who will be undertaking the days of fasting not too long from now. We are aware of the benevolence of the Chief Imam when it comes to periods like this, and we are aware of the toll it has on all those who are part of it. So management and staff of Cocoa Processing Company have decided to make this presentation to the Chief Imam, and we believe it will go a long way to help them to go through this period of fasting.
The spokesperson for the Chief Imam, Sheikh Armeyao Shaibu, thanked the company for the gesture. He said the nutritional values in the cocoa products will enhance their physical strength during the period of fasting. The Chief Imam, Sheikh Usman Nuhu Shaributu, later offered prayers for the management of the company. The company will also mount stands in some selected mosques at Tema, Accra and Tamale to serve Muslim faithful who visit the mosque to break their fast with chocolate drinks.
The Volta River Authority, VRA, has donated educational materials to the Sujaman District Education Directorate for onward distribution to public basic schools in the district.
In all, 15 districts in 4 regions will benefit from this year's donation by VRA, which includes VRA branded exercise books, pens, reading and textbooks, and 50 HIV/AIDS games. The regions are Volta, Eastern, Greater Accra and Western. 4 out of the 15 districts are in the Eastern region, namely Lower Manyakrobo, Esujaman, Upper Manyakrobo and Yulokrobo. A total of 97 public basic schools in the Sujaman district will benefit from the donation. The initiative is in line with the company's ambition to empower young people to fully realize their potential through the provision of educational materials. The manager of corporate communications of VRA, Mrs. Gertrude Kumson, said VRA is committed towards supporting brilliant but needy students to attend second cycle and tertiary institutions within Ghana under its Community Development Program Scholarship Scheme. So far, 294 students have benefited from the scheme at tertiary and senior high levels. The Esujaman District Deputy Director of Education in charge of supervision and monitoring, Mr. Prosper Yekple, thanked VRA for their continued support towards education and promised that the items will help improve people's performance in the districts. The cost of educational materials to be distributed to the 15 districts in the 4 regions is 450,000 Ghana cedis.
80 years in the life of a person or institution comes with so much experience and is a feat worth celebrating. Most often, this stage of life serves as a fountain of wisdom and expertise from younger ones. Such can be said of Ebuakwa State College, which has a lot to share as it clocks 80 this year. At the launch of its 80th anniversary, a professor of botany at the Department of Plant and Environmental Biology at the University of Ghana, Legon, Professor Alfred Oteng Yeboah, asked students to apply themselves diligently to their books and life in general, and this is the surest way to make it in life.
Ebuakwa State College was founded in 1936 by 3 illustrious elders of Achimasafo, together with Nanase Oforiata I. The school was originally sited at Achimasafo but later relocated to Chebi for lack of suitable accommodation, easy accessibility, and also because Chebi was the traditional capital of Achim Ebuakwa. In 1958, the school was absorbed by government and moved to its present location at Pano. The school's motto is Susubribi, to wit, measure up to something. This year, the school turns 80. The anniversary launch was under the theme, providing quality education through discipline and hard work for academic excellence. A professor of botany at the Department of Plant and Environmental Biology at the University of Ghana, Legon, Professor Alfred Oteng Yeboah, who is also an old student, said the school has produced high-profile personalities who contribute to the socio-economic development of the country. The headmistress of the Ebuakwa State College, Dr. Joyce Rodlin Ado, enumerated some challenges facing the school. She called on government and old students to help surmount these challenges.
Challenges related to inadequate academic and residential facilities for staff and students, security, transport, water supply, and sanitation. This situation sometimes undermines our efforts to maintain a high standards of excellence and discipline.
Several events have been lined up to mark the 80th anniversary of Ebuakwa State College, while an anniversary cloth was unveiled to celebrate the milestone.
Good evening, my name is Morris Ogbete. It's AU Day, it's a holiday, we do business, brought to you by NIB and Ernest Chemist. Now, revenue collected by the Ghana Revenue Authority is beginning to pick up after a 215.8 million cedi shortfall in the first quarter of 2017. The Commissioner General of the GRA, Mr. Kofinti, said there has been much improvement, especially in corporate tax after the month of March. Although import duties continue to suffer, he is hopeful that the country or the authority will meet its 2017 target by the end of 2017.
The Ghana Revenue Authority set a target to collect 34 billion cedis of revenue for the 2017 financial year. The target for the first quarter of the year, which was pegged at 7.611 million Ghana cedis, was missed by 215.8 million cedis, generating 7.396 million cedis. Although this development has been of concern to managers of the economy, the Commissioner General of the GRA, Mr. Kofinti, says there has been a considerable surge in revenue after the first quarter. He is hopeful that the 34 billion cedi target will be met by close of year.
As of March, we were having two major lines where the negatives were high. The corporate tax line and then the import duty line. Fortunately, with the results for April, I don't have the data with me here, the corporate tax line has changed. It has moved to a positive area, except that the import duty line is still negative. But then looking at the issues of the negative in the customs area, we are working seriously at making sure that the compliance officers do the right things, and then items that go through the GCNet system are properly priced so that we have the values that we need to have.
Increasing revenue, plugging the loopholes, and improving efficiency at the port were the main issues discussed when Senior Minister Mr. Yao Osafo-Maafo paid a visit to the Tema port. After a closed-door meeting with the leadership of the port, it was agreed that going forward, inspection of goods will be done jointly by SEPS, the BNI, the Ghana Standard Authority and all other agencies mandated to inspect goods at the port.
We are firmly convinced that most of the inspections should be done jointly. The idea of the customs doing their inspection, they finish, and then the national security people come around and say, well, we suspect this particular container or something. Therefore, after you've loaded and you're about to leave, you have to bring everything down for their inspection. This, we think, creates a problem for the smooth operations of this place. So why don't you all get to the inspection? The security man is there, the customs people are there, all the other agents, NACOP is there, everybody is there, so that we all assess the things ourselves. If we think it contains something which has been declared differently, if we think the numbers in the invoice are different from the numbers in the container, we all count together.
The Director General of the Ghana Port and Harbours Authority, Mr. Paul Asariansa, said the authority is working to improve the national single window, which was started in 2016. This system reduces the processing time for trade documents.
There's a need for reconciliation, harmonization of the two systems into one system or one platform where everybody will do business, harmoniously and very, very fluidly, so that when we talk about transit facilitation or trade facilitation, we will really talk about facilitation. So the single window is really a requirement that we cannot, do away with.
Improving efficiency at the port forms part of government's agenda for creating a business-friendly economy. And still in business, the Association of Ghana Industries, AGI, has welcomed the Bank of Ghana's decision to reduce the monetary policy rate from 23.5% to 22.5%. In an interview with GBC24, the Vice President of the AGI in charge of SMEs, Mr. Humphrey Eyim Dake, said though the rate has seen a downward review in the past 6 months, it is still among the highest in Africa.
The rate is the rate used by central banks to implement or signal its monetary policy stance. It also serves as the benchmark at which the central bank lends to commercial banks. It is the tool used by the central bank to monitor and control inflation in the country. Ghana's policy rate reached its highest in 2016 when it hit 27%. However, the last 6 months has witnessed a consistent drop in the policy rate, moving from 23.5% to 22.5%. Ideally, a reduction in the policy rate should see a corresponding decrease in interest rates at the commercial banks, but that is not the case. The banks, on the other hand, blamed their inability to respond to these positive developments on high non-performing loans in their books. The Banking Sector Stability Report issued by the Bank of Ghana in April this year shows that non-performing loans, NPLs, of banks increased by 36.17% between February 2016 and the same period this year. The figure increased from 4.7 to 6.4 billion cedis within the 12 months period. The report also reviewed commerce and finance accounted for the highest non-performing loans of banks. According to the report, the high NPLs continue to pose upside risk to the banking industry despite the marginal decline in the energy sector-related debt exposures. This also led to a high NPL ratio of 17.7% in February 2017 compared with 15.6% in the same period last year. The deterioration in asset quality was largely attributed to the asset quality review of bank loans in 2016, which led to the downgrade of some existing loans by banks. The NPL ratio of 17.7% from February 2017 is, however, an improvement over the January 2017 NPL ratio of 18%. Currently, average interest rate is about 32%, and the banks say
the headwinds in the market are still strong. This notwithstanding, the Vice President of the Association, Mr. Humphrey Ayimdake, expresses concern about the slow pace by commercial banks to respond to the reduction in policy rates.
We know the inflation figure edged up a little, but the interventions regarding the food basket, trying to create a lot of jobs and increase the food basket of the weighted average in the CPI, once these are remedied, we know the inflationary figures will drop. And as this goes on, we expect government to regulate and enforce the law so that the commercial rate, lending rates should drop. And specifically, I keep emphasize on the SMEs. The savings and loans and the microfinance institution should be regulated properly. What they're doing is distorting the market. You go to the commercial banks, they say, why we don't want to distort the market. But a number of the commercial banks today are into savings and loans and into microfinance institution. Why should it be so? We think it's improper. For purpose of competition and the competition law, which we call the antitrust law, we expect government to see to this competition law coming into being so that the cartel system and the oligopolistic market that is being formed should be broken.
Inflation has been easing down from the September 2016 figure of 19% to 13% as at April this year. According to the Bank of Ghana, risk of inflation is low and economic outlook for the rest of the year is very high, and this development has influenced the continuous reduction in the policy. A development the Vice President of the AGI in charge of SMEs, Mr. Humphrey Ayimdake, see as a positive development. He said, though the rates are dropping, it is still among the highest in the sub-region, which needs urgent attention.
The other aspect of it has to do with the MFIs, microfinance institutions, and the savings and loan companies. They are all within the financial industries. And we are aware that the SMEs form the larger part of the Ghanaian business community. It therefore goes to say that they also fall within this bracket of savings and loans and then microfinance institutions that are charging way above 5% per annum. That is where we expect the regulator, the BOG, beside the policy rate reduction and monitoring the commercial banks' activity, to also focus. We cannot leave it to demand and supply, where the microfinance institutions and the savings and loans behave and do what they want in the market. That will not work. They are all part of the financial market, and we expect the regulator to step up to the plate and regulate them properly.
A report by US-based research firm Trading Economics on policy rates for over 100 countries shows that in Africa, the Gambia's policy rate, which is at 23%, is the highest, followed by Ghana at 22.5%, while Morocco is the lowest at 2.25%. The policy rate for the Francophone countries in the ECOWAS bloc, including Togo, Burkina Faso, Benin, Mali, Niger, and the Ivory Coast, as at May 2017, is 4.50%.
Loud for Business brought to you by NIB and Ernest Chemist.
Welcome back. Up next is Health News brought to you by Yamvita and FPAC. A heart surgeon at the Cardiothoracic Center at the Kolibu Teaching Hospital, Dr. Innocent Azamli, says untreated sore throat can degenerate into rheumatic heart disease. He's therefore urging the public to treat sore throat with the attention it deserves, since it might affect them in the long run if taken for granted.
Pumps blood to the entire body for every cell to thrive. It comprises of 4 chambers, that is the right and left ventricles as well as the right and left atrium. The heart also relies on specific arteries, veins and valves to enable it to function effectively.
The heart has what we call 4 chambers or 4 rooms. So on the right side you have 2 rooms, on the left side you have 2 rooms. Now on the right side, when blood is returning from various parts of the body, your head, your leg, your arm, everywhere, your tummy, the blood comes to the right side. So the first chamber that blood will collect is called the right atrium. So when the blood is moving from the right atrium to the next chamber, which is called the right ventricle, it passes through a valve which is called the tricuspid valve. So the tricuspid valve on the right side will control the movement of blood from the right atrium to the right ventricle.
Experts say rheumatism heart disease occurs when the heart valves are damaged and are unable to function properly to allow blood to flow back into the heart. It affects connective tissue throughout the body, especially in the heart, joints, brain and skin. The disease can strike people of all ages and affects more than 15% of the Ghanaian population, according to a heart surgeon at the Cardiothoracic Center of the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, Dr. Innocent Ajamali. Rheumatic heart diseases is related to development of sore throat that is not well treated.
When somebody develops sore throat that is not well treated, what happens is that the certain chemicals that are formed within the blood also go, certain chemicals that the body forms to attack the bacteria that cause the sore throat also goes to attack the valves of the heart. So for over a long time, this reaction that occurs on the valves destroys the heart valves.
Dr. Ajamali further explained that treatment of the disease depends on the severity of the ailment, since it takes more than 10 years to notice one has rheumatic heart disease. Dr. Ajamali added that persons with the ailment suffers an irregular heartbeat and the heart is unable to pump blood, which will eventually lead to a heart failure.
When somebody gets a rheumatic heart disease, when these valves are supposed to close, they don't close, they keep open. Sometimes when they are supposed to open, they keep closed. So the rheumatic heart disease can affect the heart in these two forms.
22-year-old Victoria Mensah, who is a mother of two, is suffering from rheumatic heart disease. She complains of getting tired quickly and easily runs out of breath. Victoria was diagnosed with the disease 2 years ago, and this is affecting her ability to take care of her children, especially this 3-month-old baby.
Makuma, it is asthma. Me wo ya na basa be 4 months me enkoda. Ti esi me be surgery. Misumi ni buafo bia. E ba ti say ya me ba kura say me ntumi ma nanufu. Ti say me ma me na gin.
I don't have anyone to support me. I am pleading with Ghanaians to help me.
Bina me fan kwa surgery no. Ese me fa $7,000 enko. Misumi mu bida. Ti mesilem. Maybe I'm a baby I'm mesilem.
Doctors say Victoria needs to undergo urgent surgery to replace her valves. They say any delay might result in Victoria becoming paralyzed. She is therefore appealing to the public to help her. Donations can be made into MTN mobile money number 0544 00 0684.
Good evening, let's talk sports. I'm Theophilus Sampa. The home-based Black Stars this afternoon played an international friendly with the local Squirrels of Benin. The encounter ended 1-1. The encounter between the home-based Black Stars and Benin was a dress rehearsal for both sides ahead of the qualifiers for the 2018 CHAN tournament and the WAFU tournament to be hosted by Ghana. The match marked Coach Kwesi Appiah's second debut as Ghana coach following his reappointment as coach of both the main Black Stars and the local Black Stars. The locally based Black Stars have been in camp since last week. With Ghana hosting the WAFU tournament in September, Coach Appiah and his technical team were looking to build a formidable squad to win the competition. The local Squirrels of Benin were the first to score in the 21st minute. On the 34th minute, winger Razak was brought down in the penalty box and another penalty awarded. Awal Mohamed again converted, and this time he scored. Ghana's Joseph Esso was hacked down in the penalty area. The resultant kick taken by Awar Mohamed was missed. Both sides created glorious goal-scoring opportunities but missed all. The local Black Stars were the worst culprit. The encounter ended 1-1. Here are some reactions from the technical handlers of the two sides.
It's a learning process. We've just been in camp for 2 weeks, but actually we've trained for 6 days. Because we go on Monday, start training on Tuesday and on Thursdays. So in effect, we've been training for 6 days before this international match. So it was good for us, especially when we went down by a long goal and we had to fight back. So we saw a lot of qualities in our boys, and we think that they did their best.
There is the 4th match that we are playing in Accra, and we draw 1-1. And me, I respect a little bit the coach that he creates so many problems for us, and that will allow us to learn from them. And
let's go to Kumasi, where the Asante Hene Otumfuo did the ceremonial tee-off for the 60th Asante Hene Open Golf Championship played at the Royal Golf Club in Kumasi. The 5-day 72-hole event has 300 top amateur and professional golfers across the country and beyond participating. The Asante Hene Open Golf Championship is an annual golf tournament organized by the Royal Golf Club in Kumasi in honor of their patron and king of the Asante Kingdom, Otumfuo. The championship got underway after the ceremonial tee-off with the professionals and scratch players in the men's category starting the competition and will play for the next 5 days. On Friday, the support men and women players will take their turn, and this will be crowned with a cocktail at the Royal Golf Club that evening. The peak of the competition will be on Saturday when the handicap, both men and women and scratch ladies players join the professionals and scratch men players. The day will be crowned with a special dinner dance hosted by His Majesty for golfers and sponsors at Menshia Palace. The final day of the championship will be on Sunday, followed later in the afternoon by the presentation of prizes, clothing ceremony and the lowering of the flag. The Ashanti Regional Minister, Simon Osei Mensah, was happy at the turnout for the event. That's all for sports.
Welcome. The entertainment news is brought to you by Cowbell. On this day that Ghana joins the rest of the continent to celebrate African Union, the Art and Entertainment Desk puts the spotlight on some Ghanaian artists who portray our culture in their art.
From us at the Weather Studio, that's Ansel Communication, we wish you happy AUD. See you same times tomorrow.
And that's how we wrap up News Hour. Join us again at 10 for the latest edition. Until then, enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye for now.